Welcome to this briefing of the Jerusalem Press Club, another one in the series we've been running for the international press since the beginning of the coronavirus crisis. The recent webinars are held under the title Scoop on Annexation or Sovereignty, focusing on the impending plan to annex or apply the Israeli law on areas in the West Bank or Judea and Samaria, presumably this Wednesday. Today we host Daoud Kuttab, a Palestinian journalist and media activist who joined us from Amman. He's former professor of journalism at Princeton University and currently the Director General of Community Media Network, a nonprofit media organization dedicated to advancing independent media in the Arab region, and also founder of AmmanNet. Daoud, thanks for joining us. Recently, you wrote an op-ed piece in the Washington Post titled Annexation Could Extinguish Palestinian Hope. That's dangerous. Can you explain why this is so dangerous?
Well, what I wrote there, I tried to make a review from 1967 till now. And I tried to explain that at every turn, if there was movement, we say in Arabic, if there's movement, there's a blessing. And when there's no movement, people is when they kind of explode. So the Arab, 1973 war, followed by the Egyptian peace plan, people were hoping. And then in the 80s, people were hoping the PLO would help in Lebanon, and that was crushed. And so that brought out the Intifada. And then since then, every time people lost hope, as in the Camp David second agreement, when it frustrated and Sharon entered Al-Aqsa, people again rose up. And so I'm saying that we are in a situation where if hope of a peaceful resolution is taken away from people, that's when there is an explosion.
So do you envision a third Intifada if annexation goes through?
You know, I can't, this is one of the things that people mistaken all the time, that you can press a button and say yes or no, there's an Intifada. Intifada does come when people lose hope, and certainly some of the things that are happening now and will continue to happen if the current trajectory continues could cause an environmental situation that might, produce a protest, Intifada. I mean, they always say there's a quiet before the storm. So I think one should be very careful at interpreting the quiet that exists now.
We Israelis and Palestinians like to indulge in the blame game. So let's do it once again. Can you understand the attitude of the average Israeli that there's no Palestinian partner? With a long history of Palestinians rejecting any offer, starting with the partition plan of 1937 until most recently the Camp David 2000, Abbas, Barak made the most generous offers, Olmert again in 2008, only to be rejected again. Not to mention the second Intifada. Can you relate to this? Can you understand it?
You know, at many times I would have, but not now, and I'll explain to you why. The current Palestinian president, Mahmoud Abbas, is the most moderate, most forthcoming president we've ever had. He's much more compromising than Yasser Arafat and before that. And he's made plenty of opportunities for talks. I think, many Israelis don't remember that the last talks that we had in 2014, it blew up because of the Israelis, not because of the Palestinians. Netanyahu started building settlements and refused to release older Fatah prisoners who were held before the Oslo Accords. And John Kerry spoke to the US Senate, said it was the Israelis who blew it up. And he said, poof, it all went away. And so the Israelis have been responsible for the last time we had talks. The Russians have tried to come in and make different offers. Twice they made offers for meetings in Moscow, which Netanyahu has refused. Mahmoud Abbas more than once said, I don't want to go back to Safad where I was born. We don't want to flood you with refugees. Everything that Israelis want, he has hinted about, and the Israelis have not been interested in. Even Ehud Olmert is saying now that it's the Israelis who are not interested in peace, not the Palestinians.
Maybe there is an exaggeration about the whole notion of annexation, because many Israelis oppose it. Many Israeli former generals expressed their reservations, and even talking about the threats to security. Even the Americans themselves are not seem to be 100% sure what this plan. So maybe it's just a rhetoric that will go away after Wednesday.
You know, I will surprise your audience. Palestinians are not against annexation.
They're not.
They're not. They're against unilateral annexation. When Yasser Arafat in Camp David said, we accept land exchange or swap, that means that they accept that there will be annexation of some parts of the Palestinian areas. The problem with this government is that they are pushing for unilateral annexation, which nobody in the world accepts. You know, the whole idea of taking land by war is what King Abdullah tried to explain. You can't, because you're powerful, take land. It's what 242 said. It is inadmissible to take land by war. And it's what the whole world after World War II said. You cannot take land by war. You have to do it in negotiations. Now, the Israelis now said, oh, we'll negotiate according to the Trump plan. I mean, Trump plan was written in Tel Aviv. It wasn't written in Washington. It was read in Washington. But it's an Israeli plan that just had the face of the Americans. And so we're supposed to accept negotiations on a plan we weren't even involved in as the reference point. Let's accept some kind of an international reference point, multilateral, any kind of reference point, but not the Trump bias plan, which we don't have control over our own borders. The King Hussein Bridge or Allenby Bridge will be in the hands of the Israelis. Come on. And that's a plan?
There's a remark from one of the journalists that in 1948, Jordan took the West Bank by force.
No, they didn't. There was a vote in Jericho and people agreed to the annexation. You could argue it wasn't everybody represented there, but it was not done against the will of the people, of all the people. And still, two countries, including the United Kingdom, recognized that. So annexation is not the problem. Unilateralism is the problem.
Only United Kingdom and Pakistan,
and
to be
Pakistan.
precise.
Yeah.
You're a supporter of a two-state solution.
And a minority today, Uri.
Yes. But a prominent Palestinian, Dr. Sarin al-Seibe, already in 2008, said in an interview in Haaretz that the Palestinians should drop the idea of two-state and instead support a one-state between the Jordan and the sea, where Arabs and Jews would be equal. Wouldn't the Palestinians be better off with this option?
You know, this is, you must be sitting at our dinner table at home, because every night my children tell me the same thing. They have plenty of years ahead of them, and they say, why should we take this Swiss cheese plan? Let's go for a one state. And you could easily explain that and understand that. I believe that we can have a one-state solution, but I think you need the two-state solution to reach the one-state solution. You need to reach a situation where Israelis and Palestinians are confident enough and relaxed enough to their neighbors before you can talk about changing the actual status of the country. And that's where the problem is. The idea of one state is a nice theoretical academic idea, but what is the mechanism? How do you reach? Now they say we can wait, another 50 years. We don't care. Why should we accept a state that is so weak and so underdeveloped and doesn't have the viability? They make sense. But I know enough Israelis that Israelis want a state that is both Jewish and democratic. And at the time being, I don't think there is any interest in Israelis of diluting their Jewishness, if I can use that word.
So back to the two-state solution. In your opinion, Uh, Jewish settlers, Israeli settlers could stay in a Palestinian state?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they have to obviously accept the law and they have to license their guns. And if they are living on land that is forged or documents that were forged, they have to come up with, with the explanation for the land that they are living on. But yes, if they can accept to live in a Palestinian state and accept Palestinian rule, yes, sure. Not, I haven't said this. I mean, Palestinian leaders have said that. I'm repeating what they say. It's not a secret. They have said that they will accept that.
Recently, you wrote another op-ed asking why aren't mainstream Israelis and American Jews supporting Palestinians? Why should they?
Well, the article I wrote was after the demonstrations in America, and the American people, both whites and blacks, are demonstrating against racism, against discrimination. And I know enough about Jews that I know that they are among the leading supporters of Black Lives Matter and about the fight against systemic racism. So I was wondering why, the Jews in America are so supportive of the rights of the blacks, but they're not supportive of the rights of the Palestinians for self-determination. And I try to, argue that it would be in sync with their own principles that they believe in, and the values, the Jewish values, to want equal rights for people. And going back to Sarah and Sebi, either you share the land or you share the power. But you cannot, either you marry us and give us, proper documents and the rights of a marriage, which is one state, or you let us have an equitable divorce where we can have our own lives. Right now, we're neither. We're being FU what, and we are being under the control of the army. We don't have rights, and we don't have the rights to our land.
Some Palestinians say that annexation is already the reality on the ground, that the formal one will change nothing. What do you think about it?
I don't agree. I think occupation is a temporary thing. It's been 53 years, but it will end one day because occupation is carried by the military. And whenever the military, the cost of the occupation is high, they will leave. The annexation is transferring a temporary act to a permanent act, and that's the problem.
According to common wisdom, by pursuing his plan, President Trump was trying to find grace in the eyes of his strong evangelical base. But you just quoted, I think a few days ago, Secretary General of the World Evangelical Alliance, who holds quite opposite views.
Well, the evangelicals that Trump bases his decisions on are not as strong as people think they are, and they are, some of them, traitors to their own values, which is values that Jesus talked about, which is making peace rather than making war. And so the World Evangelical Council spoke about the need to seek peace and not to seek war, and annexation is an expansion. Even, Joel Rosenberg, a Zionist Christian evangelical, a Jewish Christian, whatever you want to call him, he's saying there's nothing in the Bible that defends expansion against the rights and against the will of the people. And so, yes, evangelicals who are genuine to the Bible and to the teachings of Jesus must be seeking peace, and annexation is not a way for peace, unless you agree with Daniel Pipes. Daniel Pipes, which nobody quotes, but he basically says, the war is over, the Palestinians lost, so why don't the Palestinians just surrender, raise a white flag, and accept whatever we give them as dictate, as happened to Japan in the World War II. That's not what's happening. Palestinians are not surrendering, and if you're going to ram something down our throats, we're going to resist. As long as we have air, as long as we can breathe. I mean, we are becoming like George Floyd, where we can't breathe, but we still have some breath in our bodies. And as long as we can breathe, we're going to say, no, we're not surrendering.
The Arab Sunni states expressed their concerns about the move. but they have strong common interests with Israel, especially on the Iran front. Aren't you Palestinians doing the same mistake all over again by counting on the Arab states who really don't care about you so much?
Well, I would say it's more than concern, and you've seen what the Arab countries have said. I think the mistake in Israel is that they take the bits and pieces they get from their meetings with some of the Arab leaders, and Netanyahu and others exaggerate them to say, oh, you know, we have the Arabs in our little pocket and so on. The Arabs are not in Netanyahu's big pocket, and their stand against the annexation is the best proof of that. And it's not just concern; it's a genuine opposition to the annexation. And they've said, if you do annexation, you know, it will ruin any possibilities of an improvement of relations with the Arab world. You know, the Arabs have said they made a peace plan, and withdraw from the West Bank. You have a veto power on the refugees, and then there will be full annexation. Nobody in Israel is interested in peace, not with Arabs, not with Palestinians. So I think you could have made some arguments about Palestinians in the past, but today, under Mahmoud Abbas, the Israelis have never had a more moderate Palestinian leader. And you're going to throw that away in the basket. And the next leader, you're going to say, oh, we wish we have Mahmoud Abbas back again.
Aren't we all crying wolf? Because I remember before Trump announced, or when Trump announced that he's going to move the embassy to Jerusalem, people say he's going to revolutionize the Middle East, and there was uproar, etc. And nothing of the sort happened. Maybe the same will happen now.
Who's the most powerful country in the world?
Who's what?
The most powerful country in the world.
As far as we know, the United States.
The United States. Which country does everybody want to have talks with? The US, right? People
Yes.
talk to you, Israelis, because they want to talk to the Americans, correct?
Yes.
Since the move of the embassy, Mahmoud Abbas, tiny little country, or not even a country, needing badly the American money, has not spoken to any American official. And you say Palestinians have done nothing. I think you're minimizing the powerful decision that was done, and I've written against that. I think they should talk to the Americans, but you're saying they haven't done anything. I think that's unfair to what the Palestinian leadership have done, regardless of what you think of them. But they have taken the extraordinary step of losing the one thing that they were fighting for in the 80s, to talk to the Americans. And now the Palestinians are not talking to the Americans. The Americans wish they could talk to the Palestinians. So it's not fair to say Palestinians have done nothing. And to be fair, I mean, the annexation is totally different than the move of the US embassy. The annexation is an Israeli decision that is against international law. It's against the most basic resolution, UN Security Council Resolution 242. Read the preamble. It is inadmissible to take land by war. It is every single country in the world is against the annexation. You know, something is wrong in thinking that, oh, this is acceptable.
Looking back at the last 20 years since the second Intifada, what do you think was the big mistake that the Palestinians made? Or what chances did you miss? For example, waiting for the end of the Clinton administration to get a better deal from the Bush administration?
You know, I don't do these things of what we could have, should have done. I think you know, in diplomacy, you calculate things as you see them, and you make decisions based on your calculations. There is a problem. We have a problem in that, in the balance of forces, we are the weak side. The Israelis have control, and in America they say possession is 2/3 of the law. They have the control, and they have the money, and they have the military, and they have the politics. So Palestinians don't have much to negotiate with, and so the two arguments that exist in Palestinians: do we accept a deal that reflects this balance of force, or do we wait till we can gain a better improvement in the balance of forces. And it's an argument, and I think it's a legitimate question, but it's based on an unfair situation of asking Palestinians. Nobody asked the Americans or the Kuwaitis if they can give up 7% or 10% or 15% of Kuwait. And now the Palestinians are being blamed because they are refusing to give up the internationally legitimate rights that they have. Okay, it's an argument, but it's an argument in politics, but not in whether it's a principle or not.
So let's move to Jordan now. What is the mood in Amman regarding annexation, and more specifically about the plan itself? That I admit nobody knows exactly all the details, but what would annexation really undermine or threaten the peace treaty between the two countries? And what happens if Israel annexes some settlements but not the Jordan Valley?
Jordan is a small country in the region, and the Jordan has existed and sustained by being always balanced. They always try. They don't take positions. They don't join axes. They don't. They try not to be enemies of anybody. Not Iran, not Turkey, not Russia. They try to keep things kind of balanced, including Israel. But on this issue, the Jordanians have been very tough, and the king has been very tough. They've sent public messages, innuendos, hints, different things that they try to send to make sure that Israelis understand that they are serious. Now, you have to understand an important thing. In the Arab world, demarking your borders is a very, very serious thing. Most Arab countries don't have their borders demarked, which means that Libya and Egypt, Qatar and Saudi Arabia, they don't have internationally accepted borders because they disagree with each other. So in 2014, after the Oslo Agreement, the Jordanians made a huge compromise by accepting the borders that are set now between Israel and the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. The borders are set clearly north of the West Bank and south of the Dead Sea. And that's Article 1 in the 2014 Jordan Peace Agreement. So all of a sudden, this agreement is being put aside, and there will be a new border between Jordan and Israel, which is the Jordan Valley. That shatters the basis of the agreement. So the one time that Jordan decides to take sides and not to be balanced and to be friends with everybody is on this issue, because this has become an existential issue to Jordan. Now, your second question is, would Jordan accept a limited annexation? And the answer is no, because again, the question here is not only the borders, which obviously if the Jordan Valley is not, that would remove one of the problems. But the second problem is that any annexation that is unilateral is a problem in the two-state solution, is a problem in a stable Palestinian state. So when Ayman Safadi, the foreign minister, made a helicopter visit to Ramallah last week, okay? And when there's a helicopter visit, you send to the Israelis who's on the helicopter. And they told the Israelis, and they knew that the Israelis would understand, the head of the intelligence service was on the helicopter to meet with his counterpart, Majid Faraj, in the Muqata'a in Ramallah. So there is a hint here that the issue of cooperation, security coordination, intelligence cooperation is more important with the Palestinians than with the Israelis. And I think that hint is supposed to send a clear message to the Israelis.
But there's something contrary to what you just said. Last week we hosted an Israeli expert on strategy who said that, rhetoric aside, the Jordanians would rather have the Israelis in the Jordan Valley than the Palestinians because of their fear of Palestinian nationalism spilling over to Jordan. Isn't that true?
When Trump uses the word fake news, I have to use the word fake news. Sorry, it's fake news.
So there's no concern in Jordan that the Palestinians, who are already 60% or more
I've
of
been
the
going back
population?
and forth for 20 years between Jordan and Ramallah and Jerusalem. Okay, I have never seen the country as united between the government, the king, and the people in opposing any kind of annexation as they are today.
Maybe this is a way to vent a lot of frustrations and problem in Jordan. Coronavirus.
No. You know, as I said, this is an existential issue for Jordan. The creation of an independent, viable Palestinian state is in the national interest of Jordan, period.
I see. So what is the situation in Jordan today? I mean, forget about annexation for a second. Coronavirus, economic crisis, 600,000 refugees.
More than
Tell us,
600,000.
more.
The Jordanian government and the Minister of Health, they basically have issued martial law since the virus began. We're under military kind of defense orders, which gives the army and the Minister of Health a lot of power. And they put a very tight lockdown from the very first days. First 4 days was like total lockdown. Nobody could move their cars. And then every Friday was total lockdown. Every night at 6 p.m. till the next morning at 8 p.m. it was lockdown. And they seem to have controlled the virus. There are still a few cases, people coming across the borders, or the students returning by planes, which are immediately put in quarantine. And the last few days, it's been zero. Every day, there's been zero cases inside the country. People coming from abroad are being tested and quarantined. Yes, there's a few cases every day. But the actual inside the country, even yesterday, the minister said, you know, the coronavirus is dead in Jordan, and people actually attacked him because it's a bit of an exaggeration. But the virus seems to be under control. They have rapid health teams that anytime there is a case in an apartment, the entire building is, you know, under military control. They take everybody, test them. Nobody can come in and out. They're quite powerful in the way that they deal with cases. Of course, the economy was suffering before, and it continues to suffer. And you know, that comes with the. You're right. There's actually 1.2 million Syrian refugees, and many of them get support from the international community, but they do put a lot of pressure on the resources and the infrastructure of Jordan. Yes, I mean, the economy is not great, but people seem to be quite supportive of the current government.
Finally, Daoud, you and I go back to the Oslo days where there was hope in the air. If you had your way, what can be done now to come out of this deadlock?
Well, I mean, obviously, you need leadership with that our statesmen are willing to take risks and to build trust with each other, and that doesn't happen. You have to act, mean what you say, and say what you mean. If you want peace, you have to mean it, and you cannot say peace and continue building settlements, continue supporting extremist positions, continue to deny the humanity of the other side. You know, we are human beings. If you shoot us, you know, we die, we hurt. If you slap us, it hurts. So we are humans. And I think once you take out this inhumanity that exists in the powerful structure of occupier and occupied, and start thinking of solutions, then you can find solutions.
Daoud, thanks so much for being with us today. And when things calm down, we hope to see you in person here in your hometown, Jerusalem. I want to thank my colleagues.
If they open the bridge, I will come, but the bridge is now closed. So I miss my grandchildren in Jerusalem, so I have to see them.
Okay. You call us and we'll see what we can do. I want to thank my colleagues at JPC, Taleb Ekel and Rachel Lexiel for their assistance today. Stay tuned to our next webinar tomorrow at 11 a.m. with Adi Schwartz and Enat Wilf, who will speak on their book, The War of Return, How Western Indulgence of the Palestinian dream has obstructed the path to peace. I'm not sure, Daoud, you would subscribe to this. Thank you all and good day.